Can everybody understand me okay? Yeah. You got me. Oh, amazing. I was worried, you know. Okay, if you guys and girls have Twitter and so on, please follow me. I'm hilarious. If you've got any more questions after this session, you can't find me, please get in touch with me and we can reach out. So, I travel a lot through Europe, right? And I know that every country has different requirements, there are different regulations, and there are different sort of things that we need to meet. But there are a few kind of underlying themes that are current through mobility management and mobile devices. So over the past sort of few years where I've been involved with mobility, before I kind of moved into the security space, the conversation was always, how do we migrate away from BlackBerry, right? So we had so many customers, so many people invested heavily in the BlackBerry sort of enterprise, I guess. They had those enterprise servers. Their employees were using those BlackBerry devices for PIM, so things like email, contacts, and calendars. But then came along this notion of BYOD. So the idea that employees or people like you and me, we'd buy our own devices, we'd bring them into the company, and then we'd expect the company to deliver some of this content on these different devices, right? So what we see is quite a few different demands here. So in the BlackBerry phase, it was more, we need to deliver the internal content to our device, right? Contacts, calendars, and emails. But when we had some of our senior executives and some of the customers that I've been visiting over the past few years or so, these execs would go into places like the Apple Store. It's very exciting because what they do is they go in there with a bunch of money and they'd come back out with a whole bunch of devices. And then what happens is they'd bring these devices into the corporate workspace and say to the IT guys and the security guys, I need you to deliver some content to this device. The problem was that everyone was used to BlackBerry, so it was all about how do we manage that information and get it onto those different device types. And by the way, it's not only just these emails, contacts, and calendars that we had on the BlackBerry devices here. It was also things like network access to internal resource, corporate mobile applications. So we need applications on our devices to enable me to do my expenses or whatever a bit better. But the problem there is that this stuff's all behind the firewall and it's there for a reason. Right? So if we move to the next slide, this addresses some of those pain points that we saw. So above the immediate pain point that we had around costs, so the infrastructure costs, so we're migrating away from BlackBerry, we've got Windows laptops and desktops, we're now evolving that, we're now moving into a BYOD kind of area, right? So we've got our execs, we've got people bringing in different device types, so we've got iOS, we've got Windows Phone, we see some of that in the UK, it's not very popular anywhere else. We have Android devices, tablets, and so on as well. We also have Mac OS X operating systems too. So I know that I've spent a bit of money and bought my own Mac into the workplace, and my requirements were I need all of my secure work content on this device. But then there's that increased risk around security as well. So the notion behind the user requirements where we need to deliver all this secure content onto those devices. So you may have emails that contain attachments which have some sort of secret documentation on there, or some documentation that can't be leaked out anywhere outside of your business. You may have corporate file shares behind the firewall, corporate SharePoint sites and so on, where you store this information. So if you're part of a design studio, for example, you may have blueprints, designs that you want to share with your colleagues, but you can't have them leak outside. If you work in a nuclear factory or something, you might have some sort of naughty information that you can't let escape either. So what we saw was that the security teams and the IT staff were having a bit of a nightmare. How do we deliver all of this content to our devices, but how do we keep it secure? How do we wrap it with data loss prevention rules? And how do we just manage all those different device types as well? So that's kind of where it started. So that's kind of the evolution of BYOD and the migration away from BlackBerry. So we go from one or two device types, so your Windows PCs and your BlackBerry mobile devices, and we open it up to the BYOD strategy. You bring your own device, where people are starting to buy their own equipment, bring it into work, and then it's all the challenge was how do we manage those devices, keep them secure, keep them compliant, and deliver that content in a secure way. So that conversation has actually evolved again over time. And over the past sort of year or so, the real risk and the focus of the conversation has really been around mobile applications. Now, what I mean by that is customers are starting to have to think about, and partners and everybody's starting to think about how risky are the applications that are on these mobile devices that are part of the business. Because remember, the problem with BYOD, it's great for us as end users, but for the business, they're not going to be able to control everything on that device. It's your device. You've bought it, you've paid for it, you've brought it into work. You don't want to lose any features or functionality. You don't really want any restrictions on your device around the things that you can do because you've paid a lot of money, right? So recently, IBM released they sponsored a study, actually, with the Poslovni Institute. And what they did is they ran a large study. I've condensed it down into 3 lines here. To look at the state of mobile applications in the world, right? So not only corporate applications, but applications that are available to you and I on Google Play, the iTunes Store, Windows Phone Store as well. And as you can see by some of those figures there, the research found that actually 40% of these large companies, so these are huge Fortune 500 companies, these are also SMB companies as well. These are people that are creating applications for you and me. These are people that are creating applications that sit on the public app stores. These are also companies that are building applications for internal use. So, I see it all the time. We've got customers who leverage a third-party software vendor to create applications to leverage some sort of internal system. So we found that actually 40% of those companies do a really bad job at securing those applications. And we'll go into why that's important in a second. We then found that 50% of those companies actually set no budget at all to sort of analyze or do any risk assessment, penetration tests, or anything at all on those devices. So, in fact, half the applications that are available to us, only half of them, have been tested or pen tested and so on. We then see that 33%, so a third of those companies actually don't do anything at all. So they build these applications, they get the functionality in there, they sign it off, they release it, but they don't pen test it. So that opens up a whole sort of raft of issues, a whole lot of potential risks. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. So we've got another IBM-sponsored study. I keep talking about IBM, I know I'm paid to. But here we have some more statistics for us as well. So this is saying that we're looking at the Android store and the Apple store. Hands up, by the way, who of you use a mobile device for work? Quite a few people, okay. Android, iOS sort of devices, right? And perhaps these are your own devices that you've brought into the company and you've had them enabled with your work content. So that's great, that's what I do as well, by the way. So what we've seen in this study is that actually for the top 100 applications that are paid for applications in either store, so if you're an Android user or an iPhone user, if you go into your app store, you'll see that there's a paid section and there's a free section. So for the top 100 paid for applications, 100% of them on the Android store have been hacked. And what I mean by that is somebody has taken that code, and because of this, because people aren't pen testing their applications properly, they're not hardening them, they're able to kind of break that code and re-release these applications on third-party app stores with no cost. Right, so some of you may have heard of some of these app stores that are available that are third-party. It's not a Google app store, it's something else that lives on the internet. For iOS, we have the Cydia store. So if you jailbreak your iPhone, for example, you can go ahead and download paid-for applications, but you get them for free. So I explained this to one of my customers recently, and they said, oh, what's wrong with that? I'm getting free applications. It's amazing. The problem is, you don't know what else is going on with these applications because nothing is really free, right? We all know that. We all understand. So when people are sort of cracking these applications and re-releasing them for free on these other app stores, they're also often injecting these applications with malicious code, things like mobile malware. And that's some really nasty stuff. Let me check my next slide. Okay, so mobile malware is absolutely the trend at the moment. So whenever I talk to any of my customers, whenever I talk to business partners or come to events like this, I get asked all the time, no longer is it we want to migrate away from BlackBerry and adopt a BYOD strategy. And that still exists, but it's more about, the customers have matured in what they're doing with their mobile strategy. It's now all about how do we secure those devices. And what does the mobile malware do, by the way? So the stuff that we've seen, the stuff that I've seen on these devices is scary. So not only does it pull things like your address book and emails and content from your device and upload it to some who knows what server somewhere, we've actually seen mobile malware on devices that can remotely activate things like your camera, things like your microphone. So if you think about whenever you've had a one-to-one meeting with a manager or a client or something where you've been sat in that room and everyone's got their device on them, right? So it's always in your pocket or you put it on silent, put it on your table. If your device is infected with some malware and it's one of those really nasty types of malware that can actually activate some of this stuff remotely, you're not having a one-to-one meeting. There are people listening to the conversation. Some of this stuff can intercept phone calls, listening to phone calls as well. So it becomes a huge, huge risk if you're anybody, but especially if you're in a business, or especially if you're an executive, or especially if you're somebody that has sensitive information that you don't want to make public. Now, it's particularly risky, to be honest, for Android devices, because we see that on Android, the environment is a little more open. So those users are able to download and install applications from untrusted sources a little bit easier than they are for iOS. For iOS, you need to go through the rigmarole of jailbreaking your device before you can access some of these things. So that's why, in a nutshell, Android is considered a little bit more risky. But there's things that we can do. So I'm not sure how many hands I'm going to get for this, but has anybody ever used one of those dating applications? No one. Yeah, okay. Neither have I, obviously. So I've got some more stats for you. So I thought this was 1 a.m. this morning. I put this title up. I thought it was quite creative. So the way to your data is through your heart. So I'm referencing here another study from IBM again. So it's another sponsor study that we do lots of different things. And we actually found that I think something like 60% of the dating applications that are available to us on the public stores, by the way, so the iTunes store or Google Play store, are very weak in terms of security. So we see there highlighted in red in the middle, 26 of the top 41 dating apps on Google Play had a high security vulnerability. And this isn't necessarily malware on these applications, and it's not. But it's more the way that the applications are coded, and it's kind of that social engineering aspect of gathering data from mobile devices as well. So if you think about a dating application, I know no one's ever used a dating app, so you might not understand. But when you're talking to somebody, when you're engaged with somebody on one of these kind of applications, right, so you go through your photos, whatever, you find someone that you like the look of, and then you start talking to them. And that's great. That's the idea. You get to know somebody. So where have you been recently? Where are you going on holiday? Where do you work? What do you do? What's your position? And things like that. When you become more comfortable talking to these people, you start to divulge a little bit more information about yourself. If people are asking, you are quite interested in the other person, you're going to divulge some of this information, right? It's all about impressing everyone. The problem with that is it leaves us open to these kind of phishing attacks, right? So once people gather this information from you about who you are, what you do, where you work, where you live, what's going on, that's quite scary stuff. That person can then send you a link to say, I've just uploaded some new photos to this link here. If you just click this link, you'll see some more information about me. And people do it. And people get their data stolen, and it's very scary. Because the issue that we have with dating apps, as well as this social side of things, so sharing that personal information, people are open to these phishing attacks, they're clicking links when they shouldn't. You've got to understand that the access that these applications have to your device is quite scary as well. So you've got this application, you're uploading photos to your account, so you can take photos of yourself and upload them, so the app needs access to your camera, microphone as well. We have GPS and location data, because a lot of these applications actually look for people that are kind of in your vicinity, within your area, so that you can meet people that are close to you. So your application has access to that GPS data. We then have things like your contacts, your calendars potentially as well, if you're scheduling things through the application or sharing information through the application. And then the problem is that we've actually seen that 2060s, 41 applications, as I said, had these high security vulnerabilities, and that's due to this poor coding as well. Okay, that's mostly what it is. So the way these applications are coded, and if we go back to here, again, it's the same story again. It all kind of relates back around again, right? So we've got companies building these applications, they're not pen testing them, they're not securing them properly. The weak coding in these applications is leaving them open to vulnerabilities, essentially. Have I scared everybody? No one's going to doubt anyone anymore. So, okay, got about 10 minutes left. So let's talk about what we do at IBM. So over the past couple of years, we've made a lot of progress around our mobile device management and security monitoring solutions for mobile devices. We have something called, it's a strategy at IBM called IBM Mobile First. And we've got a bunch of different products that make up this strategic move here. But it's broken down into 4 simple kind of pillars here. So you've got Transform, which looks at how to strategically move into a mobile kind of environment within your business, how to migrate everything from desktop laptops into a more mobile-friendly environment. We then have Engage, where if you're releasing applications, we can run analytics and do all sorts of different fun, smart things on these applications, such as where did my clients stop on the application? Why didn't they go ahead and purchase something through my shopping cart? All these sorts of things. We've got Build, which helps you build applications, and then we've got Protect, and that's where I sit. So Protect is all about how we manage our mobile devices in a secure way, how we deliver content in a secure way, and how we sort of manage those threats from those mobile applications as well. So I'm probably going to skip through a lot of this because I just pulled out some marketing slides, maybe not so relevant here, but we essentially sell our solution in IBM Mobile First Protect in 4 kind of key areas. So we have the device management piece, and I think a lot of us here are probably familiar with that kind of concept. For BYOD or corporately owned devices, wherever there's a customer using mobile devices in a workplace, it's rare to find somebody that isn't using some form of mobile device management software, okay? So we absolutely offer that, and we span across all different device types as well. We then have our content, so things like your documents, your secure documents, you get something in an email, maybe you want to edit it, create new documentation, send it off. We can do that within a contained environment, and I'll talk about that in a second. We then have our enterprise access, so getting that content from your secure, from behind the firewall in a secure way. So network file share, SharePoint access, intranet websites, and so on. How do we deliver that content to our devices without exposing it to everybody? And then we have our mobile kind of container on the top left there. So this is all about how do we separate our work and personal content. So we don't really want our employees to be looking through our photos or through our text messages or doing things on our devices that are personal to us. So this offers a way of kind of separating that information away from the work information. Okay, so then IT admins and security staff will only manage the stuff that's relevant to the business. Okay, again, this kind of goes over what I've just explained. You can keep this for later, it's quite good. So this talks about the different types of sort of users and operating systems that we manage through our solution. So we have one pane of glass to manage all different types of users and types of devices. So whether you've got a Windows phone, nobody here probably has one. I've seen one, actually. We've got Android devices, we've got Mac OS X machines, Windows machines. We can manage all of these at the same kind of level through one solution here. So we create rules for our mobile devices around what you can do for these on these documents, for example, or emails. So you can't copy and paste content from a work email into some other application, or you can't edit a document in Office, for example. So we can create these rules in our solution and apply them to all of our device types really quickly. Okay, I'm going to skip this one for now. So let's bring this back to the security aspect, okay? So that's just a quick introduction into our Mobile First Protect solution. So it's a tool we use to manage these devices. For BYOD, it's amazing. For corporately owned devices, it's amazing as well. And what we've been traditionally using it for is those people migrating away from BlackBerry and accepting new device types into their work environment. We offer the solution that kind of manages that migration, okay? And we can offer up applications, we can offer up security rules, compliance rules, and all sorts of different things to those devices. Now, if we take this back to the application side again, so before I mentioned that we've got a whole bunch of risk that's coming out of our mobile application environments, right? So we've got our dating apps that are kind of poorly coded, and there's a kind of a big risk there around in terms of what data can be taken, and it has been. The biggest threat as well that we see is mobile malware. So where these companies aren't testing their applications properly, they don't have any budget for that pen testing stuff. They're uploading their applications anyway and releasing them out to consumers, to you and me, or to businesses. And those can be cracked. Those can be broken open, injected with malicious code, malicious sort of malware. And it's all about how do we manage that. And this kind of separates us from the competition, by the way, in terms of mobile device management. So we have something called Trusteer. Has anybody heard of Trusteer before? Yeah, I see lots of smiles. Okay, good. This light is blinding, sorry. So IBM owns a product called Trusteer, and Trusteer is great for threat management. Lots of banks through Europe use it to verify that whoever's logging into their account online is actually who they say they are. So it does a bunch of analytics, I guess, behind the scenes and threat management to determine whether you are a risk or not. So aside from that, Trusteer also offers a mobile SDK. Now this mobile SDK does two things. It's got advanced root and jailbreak detection logic built in, and also malware scanning and, malware scanning, right, for applications on devices. So what we've done with our product is we've actually, because we own both the Mobile First Protect, which is MAS 360, and also this Trusteer application as well, we've just built them into each other. So we've integrated that SDK for Trusteer into our application that sits on the device. That application that sits on your device, when you open it up, that's where all your corporate content sits. It's a container. Most of us are familiar with that phrase, I hope. So it's another application that sits on your device next to Facebook, Twitter. You have our IBM MAS 360 Mobile First Protect app. You open that up, and inside there, we, as admins or security staff, would deliver all of your enterprise content, your emails, contacts, calendars, documentation. You've got a secure browser for internal access as well. Now, in that application, we've built our SDK, our Trusteer SDK. And what that's doing is it's scanning your device or checking your device for root or jailbreak, okay? It's using advanced logic. By that, I mean we've got a team that sits in Israel, and they spend their days sat on the darknet analyzing new trends that are coming out for mobile devices, so things, new exploits that are available or have been found in mobile devices to gain a jailbreak. Or they'll analyze the darknet and past analytic data to determine what malware threats are current or are upcoming. And this team build the logic into the application and update that over the air to our mobile app. So does that make sense? So we've got the application here on our device which contains all of our corporate data. It's 256-bit AES encrypted anyway, but built into that is this advanced sort of scanning logic for jailbreak detection and mobile malware, which is also, it's very scary. So how does that work? So with our IBM Mobile First Protect console, so the product that I mentioned briefly just now, we create compliance rules, we create policies, and we apply these to our devices. So this could be something like if you own an iOS device, these are all the configurations for our business. So it could be Wi-Fi, VPN configurations, it could be email configurations, and it could be some rules around, being able to use the camera or some of the features on the device. So we can push these policies down to the device, but in the background, we also have a compliance check as well. So that compliance check would always be ticking around thinking about the device, and it will say, if any malware is detected on this device, we want to instantly lock that device down. So we can quarantine it from the network. We can remove that container, remove that information from the device, so there's no corporate data on it anymore. Because remember, this malware, if it's on that device, it can suck stuff away. It can pull contacts and information out of your device and upload it to some server, who knows where. So by building in these policy rules, these compliance rules in the background, whenever the Trusteer detects that there's some new malware on the device, instantly it'll push down a policy to remove any of the corporate data, and then quarantining the device, by the way, thus keeping you guys kind of secure. Okay, a couple of minutes. So IBM, I get this a lot, right? IBM are an American company, and the solution, the Mobile First Protect solution, is primarily a SaaS-based solution. We do offer an on-premise solution as well, so I've been involved with lots of banks or government institutes that are using on-premise because they don't want any data being leaked out into the cloud. So I thought I'd throw this slide up here because it kind of talks about what we're doing in Europe for the cloud, essentially. So we've got our data centers actually hosted in Ireland. With failover in Frankfurt, Germany. We're meeting a whole bunch of new standards, and we're constantly going through the rigmarole of getting, because each country, by the way, has different standards that they need to meet. When this product came over from the US, I had a real hard time explaining to them that the USA is one country, whereas in Europe we have, 50? And there's so many different standards and things that we need to meet, so we're getting them. And then, of course, all the data on the device itself is encrypted, so we can enforce encryption on the device at a device level. All the information that's stored within our product is AES encrypted, 256-bit, whilst in motion as well. And then we've got this trusted mobile malware and advanced root detection logic built into the application as well. We own all the IP for this. We own the roadmap, we own the updates, we own everything here. And that's something that differentiates us from the competition, actually. So, okay, I think I've got a minute left, but I think we'll end it there, if that's all right. If you've got any more questions or you want to come and teach me some Serbian, I'll be around. But thanks so much for having me.